Unfortunately, little Schindler is no longer with us, but her super kind son, Ben, was kind enough to come here and give her talk about her experiences as well as his own growing up in a household with Holocaust survivors. We kindly ask you to refrain from talking and eating and to make sure that your phones are off. And also remember that after the talk, there will be a book sale. Hardcover covers are $20 and paperbacks are $15, and they will be sold over there. And without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to our guest, Ben Schindler.
Thank you. Hey, hello, Barons, huh? How you guys doing today? Good? It's like 75 out there when I came in, so I guess it's time to get rid of all the long sleeves for a while. So anyway, I just want to say I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to come back here. Sad it's not with my mom, Rose, my rock star mom. You know, I got to be her roadie for 3.5 years with both gigs, and that was a lot of fun, very rewarding, and so grateful for all the love and support. So without further ado, this is my mom's movie. We recorded this, had a premonition about some things, and I decided 6 months after I had the book and I had enough money, I said, let's make a movie. Mom can still do this perfectly, because she's not going to be able to do it forever, of course. And so she died 2 months ago. We buried her 2 months ago, yesterday. And you know, we still think about her a lot. We miss her. But this is how we keep her alive. And for me, this is my 5th gig without her, and I get to listen and watch her be alive again every time. So pretty rewarding. Without further ado, thank you, everyone.
My name is Rose Schindler. I will tell you my story from the beginning. It's not a very pleasant story. I come from a family of 8 children, 6 girls and 2 boys. We had a wonderful life under the Czech government. I'm Jewish, by the way, and the Jewish people had the same rights like everybody else. We lived in a 3-room house. We had no electricity and we have no bathrooms in the house. Everything we wore was homemade or through dressmakers, and everything we ate came through our ovens. There were not more than 1,500 people in the whole village, okay? We had no stores where you could go buy stuff. The only thing we did have is a bakery, okay? That's about it. And maybe a store where they would sell paints and nails and stuff for building. We had 2 big cities on either side of us. One was called Munkács and one was called Ungvar. And there they had about 25,000 people. And if somebody wanted to go from Munkács to Ungvar, they had to go through Szerenye, which was my town. So in 1939, the end of 38, a half a dozen Hungarian soldiers came in on bicycles, and they settled over there, and I don't know how long they stood because we did not really pay any attention to them. Life continues, not too bad. But little by little, everything was changing. Within a few months, all of the men in our town were taken on trucks to go to factories to work, either factories on roads or who knows where. And also, the same time, all the Jewish businesses were taken away. My father was a tailor and he had a shop in the middle of town. And so all the Jewish people that had stores or shops, they were all taken away. And things were not so good after that was happening. And of course, all the men were taken away for 6 days a week, every day, to do slave labor. Before, we were first-class citizens because we were practically running the town. But now we are third-class citizens. We don't have the rights for anything. We had no higher education than middle school, okay? And all of a sudden, while this is happening, all our non-Jewish friends are beginning to be kind of nasty, calling us dirty Jew, and all kinds of things that were not ever before, okay? So what can you do? You have no choice. We have to just go along, because we have no rights anymore. Can you imagine living that way? So this is going on for quite a while, okay, till 1944. In 1944, about 2 weeks before Passover, my mother said, go get a bread. We had a bakery in our town. So in the middle of town, of course, we had the farmer's market, and the man is making announcements. Radio was very against the law during the war, and we never had newspapers. So how do you send the news to the whole little village? So they used a drum. There was one man who had a drum, and he would beat the drum, and this is how we would get together and listen what's going on in town, okay? So as I'm going, this man is announcing, all the Jewish people are going to be shipped away, sent away. You have one today or tomorrow, you'll find out when you'll have to go. Everybody's entitled to take one bag or a suitcase. We had no suitcases because we never traveled. My mother said to me when I got home, go to the fabric store and get some burlap, and we're going to sew it up, and we're all going to have a bag to take with us. And she also tells us, put on a couple of sets of underwears and a couple of socks, because we don't know where we're going, and we don't know if we're going to have a chance to do laundry. Anyway, so I went and got the burlap, and we came home and we sewed it up, so we each had a bag. And then before we left the house, there were certain things that they asked us to do, the leaders who are doing all this horrible stuff to us, okay? They said, if anybody has any money or valuables, you can bring it over here, and we're going to keep it for you, and when you come back, you will get it back. You know what BS means. I was 14 years old, okay? I had no idea what was going on, really. So my father, he put a few pieces of jewelry together in a little shoe polish box. And he said, he's telling, I had 2 older sisters and an older brother, okay? And he said to us, come with me. I put a few pieces of jewelry in here. I want you to see where I'm going to hide it. So after you come back from the war, you will know where it is. So my father already knew a lot more than me, or my sisters also, what's going on. So my 2 sisters said they don't want to, they are not interested in doing that. So I said, fine, Dad, I'm going to go with you. This is how I survived the war, guys, by always doing things. A lot of things were not supposed to be done, but I did it, even as I was a child growing up. Lots of spankings. So I am wearing a necklace on my neck. This is from my father's pocket watch. So this necklace goes on my neck. I don't sleep in it because I'm afraid that it's going to be too much pressure and it might break. So the first thing I get up, I put it on the counter, on the night table. The first thing I get up in the morning, this is the first thing that goes on my body. And the last thing when I go to bed, when I take it off. I feel that my father is with me. And I believe that's how I'm still here, all these, because so many of us left. So we go to the school and we do whatever we're supposed to do, and then they take the names, and finally they take all the information, and then they put us on oxen-driven wagons. You know what oxens are, right? I could walk faster than they do. So we had no other transportation. We did have some horses, but not too many. So they must have squeezed in, 30, 40 people on every oxen-driven wagon, and they took us to the next city, which was Uzhhorod. As I said, it took many, many hours, probably 8 to 10 hours before we got there. And when we got there, they put up some make-believe tents because there were no buildings. And this is April 1944. The temperature is about between 25 and 30 degrees. By us, the winter would come in the fall and leave in the spring. So they must have put in 3 or 4 families in each tent, and the tents were pretty big size. Every couple of days, they would put people on the trains. So we were over there maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I have no idea how long, and finally they put us on a train. They squeezed in 70, 80 people in every train, and they were complete families. Children, you know, families, grandparents, aunts, uncles, complete families. And they stuck us in there, and then they closed the doors, locked the doors, and off we went. One of my boys went on the internet and he found out how long it took in those days to go from Uzhhorod to Auschwitz, Poland. 2.5 days. We had no food in the train, we had no water in the train, no place to relieve yourself, so you can imagine what the train must have been. Finally, after going and going, the train slows down, and the door opens, and a man in a striped uniform comes on the train to help us with our luggage. A shaven man in a striped uniform. I want to tell you that all the work in these camps was done by our own people. If they wouldn't do it, they would shoot you. We had no choice. And so he's looking around, and he comes to me, this man, he's a survivor there helping out. He comes to me, he says to me, "How old are you?" I said, "I am 14. He says, "Tell him you're 18. I had no idea what he was talking about, okay? So, and he's looking around to see if he could find other young kids to lie about their age, because they're not going to bringing us there to have a good time. It's for slave labor. We come in front of 3 SS soldiers, and I believe one of them was Mengele, okay? And he's telling my father and my brother, I had an older brother, go to this line. My mother and 3 sisters and brothers to this line. My 2 sisters on this line. And he says to me, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 18. And my sister Helen didn't know I was told to lie about my age. I said, "Oh no, I'm 18. He let me go with my 2 older sisters, otherwise I wouldn't be here today. I would have gone with my mother and 3 sisters and brothers straight into the gas chamber. I never saw my mother and 3 sisters and brother again. And so they marched us into this building, and they told us to take all our clothes off and put it on pile over there. And then they shaved our hair, not only our head, everywhere. And they gave us a dress from another pile. Because all the clothes that we brought with us, you know, when you travel, you always travel in your best clothes. You're not going to travel in rags. All those clothes were sent to Germany for their families. So we go outside after a while, after we got our clothes on, the dress on, we go outside and we're standing in line, always 5 in a row. And then there's a Polish guard standing next to my sister Judy with a gun and a dog, and there's a big fire behind the building. You can see smoke, and you can hear children crying, and you can hear adults calling names, and really weird, okay? So my sister said to this guard that was standing next to her, "What is that noise behind the building? What's the fire and the noise?" He says they were burning hair. So she said, burning hair would make this kind of noise. And he said they were burning cripples. So later on, the next day when we came into the barracks, maybe the next day or 2, we found out what they did. They didn't even give the people enough gas to kill them all the way. They shoved them out the back door and they burned them half alive. So we knew what happened to our families. Has anybody been to Auschwitz? Quite a few people. It's not a pleasant place, but there's so much history over there. There were 3 camps separated by 12-foot electric fences. There was a gypsy camp, a Czechoslovakian camp, and a Hungarian camp. So ours was a Hungarian camp at this time. So, and before we walked in through the gate, there was a big sign. It says, "Arbeit macht das Leben frei." Work makes for freedom. So we march into this camp, and there's 30 barracks over there. Okay, one barrack is a kitchen and one barrack is a bathroom. The bathroom has sinks with cold water and holes in the ground. My two sisters and I ended up in barrack 26, and we walk into our barrack, and we had 3 rows of bunks. No blankets, no nothing. We kept each other's bodies warm. So we go to sleep, we get up the next morning. So I said to my sisters, I want to go outside, I want to know what's going on. I go outside and I'm walking, and I see these electric these fences, 12-foot fences on either side of us. And you see people holding on with their fingers. Holding on. Dead people, half dead. A lot of people didn't know it was electric, and they would touch it. They were kind of talking to the gypsies or to the Czech people, you know what I mean? Socializing. So either that or they touch the electric fences to commit suicide. Because this started in 1942 and we are here in 1944, okay? You can't even explain how it looked. It was worse than hell. I'm walking and I see people doing all kinds of things, you know, socializing and stuff, and all of a sudden somebody calls my name. Roisy, Roisy. So I figured, my God, I knew I was popular. I didn't know I was so popular that I should be found in this God-forsaken place. It was my father. Before he had always wore a suit, a tie, a hat, glasses, a beard, well-dressed, you know. And here he's in a striped uniform, shaven head, no glasses, everything. So when you're used to seeing somebody a certain way, you know, you have to look twice before you recognize him. He says, Roisy, Roisy, don't you recognize me? So we hugged and we kissed, and the first thing he said to me, where's your mother? And at that time I really didn't know, because this was the first morning there. We found out later what happened, you know, while we were there. So I told him I'm here with my two sisters, Helen and Judy, and my father said he's here with my brother. They were already selected to go to a factory to work. So this was an all-women's camp, but so 2 of the barracks had men. So he's telling me what to do. He says, whatever you do, stay together, because you have a much better chance of surviving. And also stay alive so you can tell the world what they're doing to us. And we kissed and we hugged and we made up to meet up the next morning. And my father said, bring your sisters. And he said he's going to bring my brother, and we're going to meet a certain time. And the next morning we went and we met my father and my brother. And we were together and we were talking for a little while. And he repeated the same thing. Whatever you do, stay alive so you can tell the world what they're doing. So this is what I'm doing, okay? So we said goodbye, and we made up to meet again the next day, but they were gone. Because this was an all-women's camp. They were all sent away to some factories to work. Little by little, you know, people are going to factories to work, people are still coming in. Within 2 months, over 500,000 Hungarian Jews were brought into Auschwitz. Complete families. And if 20% of them survived, we are lucky. And I really mean that. After being there 10 days, we probably each lost at least 10 pounds because there's no food. They're always coming to our camp to take survivors to factories to work. That's why they brought us there. And sometimes they would make us get undressed to see if we have any flesh on our bodies, because you have no idea how some people were skin and bone. Really skin and bone. So after, as I said, a week or so, they're going to get selected and putting me in the gas chamber line. And we know what to do. You know, when you're in a place like this, people give you advice what to do. So they had the gas chamber line and the line for the people to go to factories to work. So they would tell me, if they put you in the gas chamber line, make sure nobody sees you, get out of the line. And that's what I did. And then my sisters would do the same thing, because we promised my father we're going to stay together. So they had to get out of the line, and I had to get out of the line. So we did this maybe 3-4 times, and then we decided we are going to wait for the war to end. We were going to be liberated. So we did, because every barrack has 1,000 women. So when they come for 200-300 women, you know, you're not forced to go to get selected. after being there about 5-6 weeks in this camp, we found out that we have cousins in barrack number 2 who's in charge of the barrack. And you know what that means? An extra slice of bread, an extra something, okay? So of course we moved to barrack number 2. And it was an amazing thing for us to be with, first of all, not only the food, but being with relatives together. So finally, while we were with our cousins, we probably each put on a couple of pounds because we had extra food. And then they came to our barrack, I think must have been the 4th month that we were there, and they need 300 women to go to Freudenthal in Germany to a factory to work. So I said to my sisters, you go out and get selected, and I'll see how I can steal myself into this transport. I know they would never select me to go in it, okay? So my 2 sisters were selected, and then as I'm in the barrack, trying to see how I can, and we had a door in the back of the barrack, and somebody was guarding the door. So I was waiting to see who is going out through that back door. Maybe if I see somebody that maybe knows me a little bit, I can go out with her. So it took me a while, but then I saw one lady, she's going out, and I think I may have known her, but I wasn't sure, okay? So she lets her out. She goes to the back, and then I quickly chased to the back door, and she says, where are you going? She says, you're supposed to go through the front to get selected to factory to work. I said, my mother just walked out, I want to go with her. How this came to my brain to say such a thing, it was a big lie. And she let me out. My sisters held a place for me in line. This is how I got out of Auschwitz-Birkenau. In the meantime, we are here for 4 months, or maybe a little longer. We haven't had a cleaning in 4 months. Can you imagine not having a cleaning in 4 months? Our bodies were full of lice. We couldn't sleep at night. They were biting us so badly. So of course, they're not going to send us anywhere to a factory to work in this situation. So they're marching us to the bathroom. They're shaving our hair again, disinfecting our bodies, giving us decent clothes, underwear, socks, and shoes. It's like 1,000 times better than what we had. So finally, we are all dressed and we're all ready to be shipped away, and we each have a number on our dress, okay? They didn't tattoo us in Auschwitz, but they did tattoo us in the factory. So let me show you my tattoo. You see this? It's A25893. This was an Auschwitz tattoo. Once you get the tattoo, you feel a lot safer because you know that they're going to send you to a factory to work, okay? So finally they put us on a train, not a train, I think it was some type of wagons. I'm not 100% sure. And it took about a couple of days to get to Freudenthal in Germany. We are 300 women, and we are all assigned to different jobs. But of course we have a building like this. We have mattresses and we have blankets. I mean, it's like heaven compared to Auschwitz, okay? So I was assigned to work on gas masks. My sister Helen was assigned to work on uniforms, SS uniforms, and my other sister Judy, she was assigned to work on guns, I believe, yes. So I had to sit on a high chair, pick up a mask, look inside and put it on. 12 hours every day. So after doing that for about 10 days, I said to the people who were serving us lunch every day, I said, you know, this is hard work, I should get an extra meal. Doesn't hurt to ask. Remember, if you need something, don't be afraid to ask. The worst thing is you get a no answer, okay? So she says, sure, you could have an extra meal. And what I used to do is take that meal into the living quarters and I would share it with my sisters. Finally, we're working and everything is going great, okay? And they're always telling us if we don't do good work, they're going to send us back to the Auschwitz. And you know what Auschwitz means? A crematorium, okay? So this is going on for about 8 months. And they always used to come to our building to march us to the factory to work. It was like a 5-minute walk. But anyway, nobody's coming to pick us up. This must have been May 6th or 7th, I'm not really sure what date. So we're waiting and waiting, and finally I said to my sisters and all the other ladies, I probably was the youngest girl over there, and I had more guts than anybody else over there too. I said, I'm going out, I want to see what's going on, okay? So they said, well, you can't go out, it's locked. I said, I'm going to try and get out. So I go out The door is wide open. It wasn't even locked. I go out, and the electric gate is wide open. All the Germans ran away. And then I hear planes going over us, and we hear shooting guns. The Russian soldiers were coming through the cornfields, through the back of the building. We were wearing regular clothes. We were not wearing uniforms, so I figured if I go in front of the Russians in a regular dress, they would think I'm a German woman. They would probably kill me, okay? Because the Russians were very easy with their guns, okay? So I tore a piece of my dress off, and I found a stick, and I put that piece of material from the dress on the stick, and I went like this in front of the Russians in back of our building. I went there, and they liberated us. They hugged me and kissed me, and I told them we have 300 women here. And the Russians were very good to us, let me tell you. So the Russian soldiers came, and one of them asked me, "Do you want to go to town?" I said, "Sure, I could use an extra dress, an extra pair of shoes, or whatever, you know." So we go into town, and I said, "Can I bring a friend with me?" Because I was afraid to go by myself with him. And I think that day, I was reborn. There's something happened in my body, like something went through my body. I couldn't believe that I was free. I can do what I want. Finally, the end of the war. It was an amazing feeling in my system. I don't know how it happened. So we had to stay about 2 weeks in this place, and finally we decided it's time to go to a train station and try to go home. While we were at the train station, there were all kinds of people there, and my sister Helen, there were some Czech soldiers at the train station, and my sister Helen met a Czech soldier at the station, and they fell in love. He was such a good-looking guy. Everybody fell in love with him. But before we left the train, Tibor said to my sister, this gorgeous young man, he says, "Here is my key to my house in Prague. You go home, see who survived the war, then you come to Prague and you're going to live with me." Anyway, so as we were going home, it took 4 weeks to get home, and we were having a good time actually, meeting all kinds of people all along, and all of a sudden the whole world is so kind to us. They're offering us to sleep at night, okay? Where was the world when we needed them? Nobody offered to help us. Unbelievable what happened to us. So the first thing we did was we found a stool, and we climbed up and got the little jewelry box, the shoe polish box where we have hiding the jewelry. And that's when we divided the jewelry between us. No parents came back from the war. No mother or father, not one. Of course, not too many people came back to my village. Only about 18 or 20 people came back. We had 600 people there. Somebody came home that was with my father in camp, and he told us what happened to my father. My father was in a factory working, and he got sick, and they put him in the gas chamber. They couldn't help him. So we knew my father is gone. A few days later, somebody else came back that was with my brother in a camp. Okay? They were in Germany in a big factory working, 300 men, and 10 days before the war ended, they took the whole camp into the forest, made them dig a big hole, and they killed everybody. So I said, "So how did you survive?" He says, "I could not leave my bunk bed. He was so sick." He survived. All the others were killed. So anyway, so we knew what happened to my father and my brother, so there's no reason for us to stay here anymore. Helen says, "I am leaving for Prague." So she left for Prague, and Judy and I stayed behind because we wanted to see who else is coming home. So we stayed another couple of weeks. Not too many people were coming home. Finally, I said to Judy, "I think we need to leave." So we're going to the train station, to Uzhhorod, and we couldn't get on a train. We were there 3 days, and Judy said to me, "I'm going back to my hometown. There's a young man who got his house back. He wants to marry me. We're going to stay in Seredně." "Okay, you want to stay? Fine. I'm not going to go back to Seredně. I'm going to go to Prague where Helen is." So I waited another day, and then I finally got on the train to go to Prague. So my sister Helen said to me, "There is a gentleman by the name of Sir Leonard Montefiore who is looking for 1,000 Holocaust survivor children under age 16 to take to England for rehabilitation." And Helen thought this would be a good idea. They found 732 kids. And of course, a lot of us were older because none of us had any identifications. The planes that came to pick us up, they came from England, okay? Because Sir Leonard Montefiore was from England, and they used the bomber planes, all right? And they couldn't put more than 30, 35 kids on each bomber plane. So it took many, many trips. It started in August 1945 till February 1946. So I stayed in Prague till the last transport. So I left in February of 1946. We left, the last transport left, and we ended up in Scotland, okay? There were about 35, 40 kids, and they're taking care of us. They're teaching English, they're teaching us the language. This was an organization called Hashomer Hatzair, which means we are for Israel. We were 12 of us left in this hostel in Scotland, so they sent us to Bedford, okay, which is not far from London. 12 kids, half of girls and boys. We came to Bedford, okay, and they were mostly all Polish and German boys. About 40 kids or so, okay. So they introduced us the next day, and there was a young man in the back, a gentleman. I said, that's the man I'm going to marry. And of course, he already had a girlfriend. So it took some time. Finally, the hostel was emptying out because a lot of the kids are finding relatives in Australia, New Zealand, Bolivia, you know, because we're all orphans, okay? So we're looking for families, really. They told us we could go live in London, we could go to Liverpool, we could go to Manchester. So we decided to go to London, and Max decided to do the same thing, and his girlfriend stayed behind, okay? And that's when we started dating, okay? So it took me a while, but I got him. That's what it is. Don't ever give up, guys. Girls and boys. If you like somebody, remember it can happen. So finally, they put me in a private Jewish home where the government, the organization would pay for our upkeep, and they did this for many kids. And of course we started dating, okay, and by 1948 we got engaged. By 1950 Max and I got married. It was the first wedding of survivors in London, okay. We invited all the survivors in London. In the meantime, a lot of kids are leaving. A lot of kids are going to America. They're going all over the world, wherever there's relatives. Max was corresponding with some relatives in New York, and they offered to bring us to New York. So I said, this is my dream. My dream to go to the United States, okay? So they sent us papers. We came to New York in 1951. So here we are in New York. We speak perfect English, okay? So we found a room in somebody's house. We started in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. We were working already, so for 1 year, and after 1 year, Max's uncle had an apartment house, and somebody moved out, so we got an apartment. So we lived in New York for 5 years, and after 5 years, some of our friends were here in San Diego, and Max actually, he tried to do all kinds of work. The first 2 years, 3 years in New York, he did not have much luck. I got a job in the garment industry, and I tell you, I made more money than lawyers. Because it was piecework, and I was so fast. My husband, he couldn't make much. He probably made a third of what I was making. So I was lucky in that way, okay? So after 5 years, we had a nice bundle of money already. Max comes to San Diego just to see what's going on, okay? And he calls me. He came for Christmas time, 1955, I believe. Was it 55, okay? He came for 3 days. He calls me 2 days later, Rose, he says, Rose, pack up, we're moving to San Diego. My husband got a job, double pay what he was getting in New York at Solar. I don't know if anybody knows where that is. After living in LI Gardens for 10 years, I needed another bigger house, so we moved to Del Cerro. We have 4 kids, 9 grandkids, 1 great-grandchild, and I want to say that we are so thankful to this country for letting us come and make a new life for ourselves, because this is the best country in the world, guys, and I really mean that. So thank you very much for listening to me. If anybody has any questions, I'll be very glad to answer it.
then we'll talk about a little bit more about the video and also about his own experience growing up in a household with Holocaust survivors.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. So grateful to all of you for being here. Just want to say one thing about, so you remember the chain story, right? Mom has a chain story. Father hides it. Even though her house it survived, the roof was taken off the house because the Nazis kept their horses in her house. And Mom grew up with dirt floors and no plumbing and no electricity, right? So, perfect house, keep horses in, the floors are already dirt. We have some places like that in America too. Don't fool yourself. There's still places in America where that's dirt. Clean dirt floors. So anyway, so Mom has her chain story. I just want to say my father, whose story is also in the book. So the book is like two books because it's first person, blinders on, in their head. Just like in Ellie Weissel's Night or in Anne Frank's diary. Their kids, they only know what they know. They started 8 years old. They're in the camps at your age. My dad's in the camps during his 13, 14, and 15 years. He is liberated a week before he turns 16. My mom is in there between 14 and a half and 15 and a half. Okay? So, you might see this gold chain at the bottom of the book. And then, across every spread, I don't think, you guys have a graphic arts program here? Graphic arts is what I'm doing here. There's a chain that goes across the top of every single page. So my father smuggled his father's pocket watch chain through 1,000 nights in Nazi custody, through at least 20 nude body searches. My father had his father's pocket watch chain in his hand, in his shoe, wadded up in a pocket. He would hand it off between him and his brother when the nude searches happened. Fred would walk right behind. You saw him in that one picture of the two guys that were kind of like cholos against the old 60 Chevy Ford. That's his brother, Fred. They did that for 1,000 nights. And they stayed together with their father. There was three. My father, his brother, Fred, who's older, and my grandfather on my father's side, Jenna, who was in the They never told their father that they had his pocket watch chain, because he would have forbade it. Because had they been caught with it, they would have been instantly killed, no matter how valuable they might have been as laborers. So I just want to tell you that the chain is a really significant thing. Right now, my sister Roxanne, 3 years older than me, is wearing both chains. Bugs me. And I'm trying to get one of them off her neck into a jeweler's hand so we can make us identical. Chain story. Book, I looked at Amazon this morning. I got 484 five-star reviews now. So the book's really well reviewed and people really love it. So now let me just tell you about growing up. I grew up in San Diego. I was born in 1957, Sharp. So, you know, I'm growing up in San Diego as what looks like a white guy, but I have this history that's dark. My parents were slaves. My grandparents were murdered because of their religion. But I looked like white. So it was a weird thing to grow up and, you know, have these parents who speak this language, Yiddish. Whenever they argue or didn't want us to hear it, they just flipped to the other language. None of us knew that cuss words or stuff like that. Then you grow up and you start realizing what is. And you get to 10 or 12 and you start saying, well, wait a minute then. I needed Hitler. Without Hitler, there's no me. My parents are 1,000 miles apart in Europe. Mom's in Schindler. Dad's got a maid in his place near Berlin. So it was you know, I'm sure some of you guys have some of those thoughts with your backgrounds, with your parents, with what your grandparents or what your families might have gone through. So that was weird. And then you finally get to like 13 or 14 and your English teacher has you read Ellie Weissel's Night. You maybe do it a year old later now than we used to. And all of a sudden everything gets real. And Mom looks at that tattoo, really, don't BS me anymore. And Dad looks at that tattoo, really, don't BS me anymore. And then my high school projects, we all have to do essays still. So anyway, so that's kind of how it was growing up when I was your age. In high school, I got lucky and found graphic arts. That became my career. Encourage all of you guys for something you can do that you love, because that makes your career a labor of love. It takes a long time to work out. And then, we grow up. I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I have a Bachelor of Science in Graphic Communications. I've been in the printing business all these years. So when the book showed up and somebody said, there's a manuscript, I'm like, what? Oh yeah, Mom made a deal with somebody who heard her speak, said I want to write the book finally for 10% on the come line. And I'm like, okay, give me the manuscript. And I sit down in my living room and I couldn't put it down for almost 3 hours. And I mean, I know this story. I grew up with this story. I'm like, ooh, how did this happen? So, an Irish Catholic woman who doesn't know Jewish from Islam heard my mom speak and said, I want to write your story, and started doing the research on Mom and Dad and their actual authentic stories, all recorded, and came up with this first-person amazing narrative. So then 4 years ago, I was in the printing business. I took the book, became a publisher, started a publishing company. People think Mrs. Publishing because it's MRS. Kind of the trick there is Max Brother Schindler Publishing, just their names. But it makes it sound like a woman-owned business, which is good right now. And then for the last 4 years, I've been Mom's roadie. She was on stage. I was just getting her to the gigs on time and making sure she had what she needed, and letting her be the rock star that she was. So in that time, I created the Rose Schindler YouTube channel. Any of you know Jocko, who does a podcast, the Navy SEAL. It's close to 1 million views on every podcast. She did Jocko podcast because he recognized, oh my God, your mom is braver than anyone I've ever met. So she's got like 6 podcasts. We've got a bunch of interviews in there, including my father. He was interviewed a few times, including by me. And I just encourage you guys to check it out because it's just inspirational. No matter what BS you're in the middle of, you realize it's nothing compared to what they had to go through. And then we take my mom's best advice. Had a bad day, kids. Something isn't going great. Don't worry about it. Tomorrow will be better. Always. So, with that, I would like to see if anybody has questions or wants to say something. It takes one to start. Or if anybody has reflections on my mom, those seen this before, and wants to say something to everybody else. Stand up and shout.
I'd just like to say thank you for coming, and I was lucky to see your mother on stage last year, and I'm so sorry.
Her passing was quick. Just so you know, we had like 5 gigs in January. One of them I canceled because when I got there, I had a minor stroke. She actually recovered from that. And then we had 4 more gigs in January. The last one was January 26th at UCSD with, full house. We did dinner. It was a really fun one. It's on TV. Steve Fiorino from Channel 8 covered that one. And 3 weeks later, she was dead. Pretty fast. So she didn't linger. She kept saying in her bed, how did this happen so fast? It's all I want to know. So she asked all her friends, how did it happen so fast? It was just fine, 3 weeks ago. So cancer can be tough. She fought cancer for like 25 years and a bunch of iterations. Anybody? Anything? All right, well, thank you. Okay.
Did your mom ever reunite with anybody else from the town?
Oh, yeah. So that's the question. You think, God, they all must just, These survivors didn't just survive, they thrived. The ones that have the genes or, it's both or. The luck to survive, because you had to have both. They all lived long, prosperous, successful lives. And in the book, chapter 3, there's a picture of Mom. I'm just sure it's right here. So there's this picture with her in a Catholic school. So when the Nazis came in 1938, she was 3rd grade, and she was our huge white house. Anyway, there's two girls in this picture that Mom's still in touch with, including my mom. They're both still alive. One's in Israel, one's in Israel. At least that was 2 months ago, they're still alive.
I have a question. So, after the Holocaust, did your mom become distant with the God and religion, or did it bring her closer to God?
Thank you, that's a good question. So, God is always a challenging subject because we have some strong views all around, right? Mom came out of the Holocaust believing in life, believing, I think, like Bob Marley does, that a mighty God is a living man. And she epitomized God by being a loving, open person who did not hate, although she would never forgive. Whenever somebody would ask her, "Do you forgive them?" she'd look right at me and say, "Do you forgive someone who killed your whole family?" Just like that. I mean, and they all began. So Mom embraced religion. We all went through all of our religious studies like normal American kids. Christian, Jewish, Muslim, or Thai, or whatever you are, or agnostic. Me personally, I don't believe in God. I believe in the universe. I believe the universe is abundant. And all that abundance is available to all of you if you just open up yourself to the abundance of the universe. There's actually a Tao of abundance. You've heard the word Tao. It's another religion. It's Buddhism. It's spelled T-A-O. And there's a whole book, like the book of, whatever, in our Bible, called the Tao of abundance. And all you have to do to get everything you want is let it in. Okay? It's not going to come from anyone else. It's only going to come from you opening yourself up to it. And so that's the whole topic. I mean, mighty God is the living man. You guys want to manifest God? Exhibit the characteristics that you think are good from your God. Right? So nobody ever comes down to earth to help us. Maybe 2,000 years ago, somebody did a few years ago. We're still waiting there, right? So, Jews are waiting for their Savior. It's a tough subject.
Hello, thank you for being here. My name is Mr. Dumas. I teach history here. I had the pleasure of hearing your mom present before as well. I don't know if the video captured her sense of humor. She was hilarious.
She was a rock star.
Yes,
Total
absolutely.
rock star. She had people laughing over and over and over again when she was talking.
Yes.
Even on her deathbed, she had people who came in laughing. I swear to God, the rabbis who come in, I hear these belly laughs coming out.
I believe it. I believe it. And, sorry for your loss, my condolences. My question is, a lot of people, of course, that survived the Holocaust had every right, and many did, to simply, like you said, live their life, thrive, and did not go on to share their experiences so publicly. And I want to know, why do you think your mom did that? I mean, and we know that, of course, there's like that surface level, well, I want to tell my story. But what was the underlying mission, and why have you decided to continue that rather than, say, hey, we did great work, we're done, but why are you continuing?
Great. Never again, right? That's what we say, and it's something that we want to come true, but it obviously hasn't yet, right? And that goes for persecution and bigotry and hatred of any other people just because they're not your people, right? So, my mom and my dad put it behind them when they met. Kind of had a conscious thing that we weren't going to talk about the past, just the future. And they went along pretty well until we hit middle school, and our questions just became too much. So, like I said, I'm chasing my dad around the house, trying to get more of the story that he still hadn't told anyone. And, he's like, "That's it, Dad, I can't take any more. That's it, come back tomorrow." But then when my brother Steve, I have two brothers, there's, uh, he's a year and a half younger than me, 2 years in school, and I have another one that's a year behind him. So when he's 12, he was junior high back then, he was in the Anne Frank story playing Peter, told the teacher, well, my mama was in Auschwitz. So at that point, the teacher called my mom and said, please come speak. She had not spoken yet. And I just kept it on the side. So that's 45, 55, 65, 27 years. 27 years they sat on it. Seems like a long time for you guys, right? Trust me. Right? So 27 years they sat on it, and then she goes into the school, and it's this thing that they kind of hid because they think it's painful and it's going to hurt her. And instead, she feels all this love from the kids, because the way my mom tells it, the way she told it is pretty much how she told it all the time. She only had her one story. Like I said, she got to 3rd grade in school, you know. She calls circumstance situation in the video. Her language skills are a 4th grader's language skills. However, her communicative skills and her street smarts are rock star. It's a strange juxtaposition of how she becomes who she is. She's not that smart. Man, everybody loves her. She knows how to talk. She knows how to communicate and get her story across and touch people emotionally. So it starts in 72, and then she does, 2 or 3 a year, slowly building. And then, 82, 92, I'm going about my life, raising my own family, and she's going to schools, and then finally my dad softens up, and he starts doing it. But if my mom and my dad come together, it's a 2-hour assembly, and, everybody just needs to go take a nap. So we can't really do it together. Because Dad's 1,000 nights and 6 camps. And so for your history, guys, you guys know what the city of Dresden is in Germany. And do you know what happened in Dresden in February 1945? Any of you guys? Somebody tell me what happened in Dresden in February 45. Come on, we're at war with them. What do we do? Speak it out, man. We bombed them. Yeah, right? My dad's in Dresden. What's everybody got? My dad is in Dresden at a tank factory as a sort of coddled, slave laborer, because he's with a group of 300 men that can build tanks, they can build planes, they can build bridges. These guys have been together for 1,000 nights, and they've been doing what the Nazis asked them to do, right? So he's in Dresden the night we bomb it. And so that's just a piece of the story, right? That's just one little thing. By the way, for you guys who know Dresden, Dad writes, and Dad remembered it as an overnight thing. So I did the research, I published the book, so I had to make sure everything is authentic that we say in the book. I never wanted that book to become a tool for Holocaust denier or historical denier. So I looked up Dresden. Turns out, the sorties went on for 56 hours. It's 2 hours, 2 days, and a third. My dad remembers it as an overnight. Because he was just waiting, right? And, the city's burning. So anyway, so for my dad to tell the story, it was few and far between. My mom just kept going. When she got older, the teachers started becoming her best friends. Teachers would come and pick her up, they take her to school, they take her to have dinner with her, they bring her back. And then, like I said, 5 years ago when we got the book, I said, okay, Mom, now that we got this book, yours and Dad's story, and it's wholly authentic, and it's the thing that's going to live on forever, I'm your manager, and going with the book. So I got the books here, you guys, and, I'm lucky that I'm both the publisher and the printer. Remember, I own the printing business. I'm in the printing company. I'm in the printing business. I own the printing company. So I'm in a real lucky position that I don't have to order 20 books at a time from Amazon and then take them around with me. And the other thing is these books are like archival books, like your textbooks. They're not going to fall apart because they're on acid-free paper and the binding is sewn or it's glued. It's not like you ever order a book on Amazon and it falls apart in 6 months or 8 months, goes print on demand. It's not. So anyway, that's what I did. So that's what's here if you want it. And so I tell the story now for the last few years with Mom, And now mom's gone, so the last part of the question is, why do I do it? I'm just going to keep doing it as long as people ask me to do it. So I don't do any like marketing. I'm not doing any Facebook stuff about this. I don't have an email list. I have everybody's email, but I don't ever send anybody anything unless they send something. So as long as people want me to come tell the Roshan story and a little bit of that, I'm happy to do it. Hey guys, just so you know, there's an audio book too. So for those of you that, or your parents who don't like to read, it's a really good audio book. And my mom, when I told my siblings I was going to do this, my brother says, "Aren't you setting her up to fail, Ben?" I said, "Let's give it a try." My mom reads her own story at the audiobook studio, including reading through while she tells in her story, watching her mom and other sisters and brothers go into the text. She reads right through that. So it's a great audiobook. And I found a guy who did the research to make sure he could speak just like that. He almost sounds just like that.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Barry.
On behalf of the whole community, we'd like you a little gift to say thank you. And thank you for doing what you do. You make a huge difference in not just our community, but world and everybody that gets to hear Rose's story, as well as your own growing up in a household, such a unique household. So keep it up.
Thank you, that's great. Thank you so much for putting this together. Thank you, everybody. Let's go back over there. You want to check out the book.